Nobody's really gonna use this money. It's just a look. It's just an entry ticket. That was my rationale. So I was able to change the numbers, and then I called the people that worked with me at the trade bank, and I said, "Listen, if anybody calls to verify this, just tell them you can't verify it over the phone, but they're ready, willing, and able to trade. That's all I need you to do, and I'll slide you 20 grand, whatever."
Wow.
So they like, all right. So now I got a team of bankers that will verify anything over the
Right.
phone, and then I got the customers that need this stuff ASAP, same day, and they willing to pay all this money. I was like, what am I doing wrong? So I would write these plays. And when I'm telling you, there was about 1,100 women at Alderson, and we would split it into two shows, 500 women each show. And the lines was around the corner. I'm talking about staff was trying to bring their kids there. The warden came to me and was like, listen, I'm not even supposed to hug you. But this was such an amazing production. This is the best thing we got going on
Wow.
in West Virginia right now. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, I had to say, oh, I get it. It's everything is a front.
Right.
And once I got that understanding, I was able to move a little better. But people don't really respect the journey as much as they respect the look. People don't really respect the position unless you really showing it. And showing it, could be fake.
We're here for the introduction of In and Out. It's a movement to change the world. It represents all things and all of us at all times. It's about freeing ourselves of any prison.
Welcome to In and Out Podcast, where I have dope conversations with incredible people who have been freed from some form of prison. I am Eric Geralt, your host, and today I'm talking with Aisha Hall, my guest, as she takes us along on an incredible journey of beating amazing odds and achieving great success. What's happening, Aisha? How you doing today?
Hi, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here. I'm doing well, blessed, and I appreciate you for coming on. I know you got a lot going on, and so it's very appreciative that you're going to take this time to have this conversation, to share some of your life story with us, and to be able to help out so many others by making an impact. I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, tell us what you got going on, and then we'll get into our conversation.
Sure. So my name is Aisha Hall, and I'm from Roosevelt, Long Island. Got a lot going on. Basically just rebuilt my life after going through a super traumatic, crazy, just kind of unbelievable situation. And I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I'm just making my way through and just trying to figure it all out and doing the best that I can, like I said, rebuilding. So you're free to ask me any questions.
All right, that's dope. Your backstory is incredible. And so a lot of the times, like I was locked up for a drug crime, marijuana to be more specific. I see that you did serve time in Alderson, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Prison camp, women's prison camp. Is that where Martha Stewart was? Or she was at
Yeah, Martha Stewart was there.
That's what I thought. I know a little bit about the prison camps in West Virginia because coincidentally, I caught my case in Charleston, West Virginia.
So, oh, wow.
Yes,
okay.
From Atlanta, I was bringing a lot of weed out there. And so I got caught up in the marijuana conspiracy. So, I was locked up in county jail there for almost a year. So, I saw a lot of people I just met a lot of people from West Virginia because I was in the county jail. When I lost the trial, obviously they didn't give me no bond or nothing. And so I had to stay there before they sent me to my sending institution.
I hate it. I hated West Virginia.
Oh, God. Oh man, hate. You couldn't say that strong enough. It was West Virginia. I was getting good money there because you could get good money for weed. And I caught my case back in 2004, but so I was making incredible money. But once I caught my case, I realized I found out that there was 2.7% black people. So and the people that was on my jury, there was two people they had a darker toned skin, and I guess they'd be considered black, but I don't really know if they were. They didn't. I don't know.
Yeah, they definitely at the prison. I definitely can say there might have been 3 officers with last names. One of them was Alderson. That was one of the last names, so that should tell you a lot right there.
Wow.
And the other 2 were like all the same, so everybody was related. I don't know if it was I don't know what was going on, but it was very strange, and they definitely didn't like black people. I can tell you that.
They didn't, but the black guys dated a lot of white women. A lot of that, and I guess it's because it's a depressed economy, or it's whatever. You have lower income, depressed economy, but you had a lot of mixed relationships. I will say that, but I guess that a lot of those people ended up in prison. I know that methamphetamines was running rampant, and as you say, something strange was going on because a lot of the COs, they all had the web on their some type of web tattoo somewhere on their body, and as I come to find out, that was white supremacy, and they was able to have like blatantly show that they were white supremacists, and they were our COs. So yeah, that was real.
Yeah, it was unreal.
Yeah, it was a heck of an experience, and your case was kind of unreal, and most of the people that look like me, not everybody obviously, but look like me and you, whether it was man or female, most of the time when we end up incarcerated, not painted with a broad brush, just my experience is that most of us was in there for drugs most of the time, or some type of violent crime, and most of the white people were in there for some type of financial crime, white collar crime. So I'm intrigued. Listen, we know that you have to be intelligent to sell drugs also, but the narrative is that white collar crimes a lot of times that's a thinking person's crime, and looking at what you were doing, it says you opened a business. It was called is it Apogee Financial? Did I say it? Apogee?
Apogee Financial. Mm-hmm.
Apogee Financial. Proof of funds, private placement platform. I'm intrigued by that. Tell me about it.
So Apogee, represented clients that needed proof of funds for trades, meaning they needed to show a certain amount of money in the bank in order to be eligible to trade with their own money. So it didn't matter if the trade required you to spend $25,000. Sometimes the requirements were 25 million or 200 million that had to be in the bank already in order for you to qualify. So what that would do is eliminate a large group of people from participating in those types of trades. And these trades were high netting, high yield returns. So it basically wiped us out because who was walking around with 250 million in the bank? It's just not, a common thing. But, people are walking around with 250,000. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of thousandaires out there that would love to be able to level up, but can't qualify because the trade requirements are so strict. I just thought it was so unfair. So, what I was able to do was approach different hedge funds and different companies that had large amounts of capital, and have them put my clients on their accounts just to show, so that when it was time for them to proof up or show proof of funds, they could qualify. Because if I need to show $100 million, but all I really need to spend is 50,000 and I have it, why should, person B be able to jump in and make all of this money? Their 50,000 is just as good as mine, just because I didn't have a large inheritance, or I didn't come from, a situation where I'm sitting on tens of millions, shouldn't just wipe me out. There was really no reason for that qualification. I could see if it was like you had to basically agree to do 5 or 6 additional trades, or you had to do more business that was part of the agreement, then I could see, okay, they want to make sure you have the money because we expect to do more business with you. But a lot of these trades was a one-time deal. So why are you requiring me to have so much money? What you're really doing is controlling the way wealth circulates. Right. And I just thought that was, such, a cock blocking thing. And I was like, oh, nah, I'm gonna find a way around this to be able to bring more people to the table. So that's what I was able to do.
Yo, that's super dope. And yeah, I agree with you, but I will say this. I agree with what you said, but I disagree. You said that there was no reason, but there was no fair reason. They had a reason, just like you said, because they wanted to keep us out. Right, it was another way to exclude just a very, very large segment of society to be able to, like you said, level up. And there's so many different ways. And I'm really intrigued by, how did you, number one, what led you to come up with the idea? How did you know about it? And then how were you able to get into these hedge funds, to be able to do it? Because you were just saying, all right, this person got 250,000. I'm just going to add a couple zeros. I ain't really doing nothing wrong. I'm just going to put a couple of zeros on there and make them be able to qualify. And we know there's so many things. And this is just one example out of God knows how many of different ways, intelligent design of how they could keep out people that look like you and I, and other people that don't look like you and I, that just were not trust fund babies or, didn't have the large inheritance. How did you find out about this? What led you to get involved in this and to have the ingenuity to say, I'm going to get down with this. I'm going to get money.
So just to give you a little bit of background about the way my brain works, I've always been a problem solver. My father taught me how to play chess when I was 6 years old. So I've always been a problem solver, figuring out a way to maneuver around and get to the goal, no matter how complicated. There's always a way. So my brain is always working like that from when I was a kid into teenage years. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 16 years old. I started my own penny saver. I saw people had business cards sitting on the desk and whatever business establishments they had. And I said, well, in order for somebody to get the business card, they got to come in. So if they come in, that's already kind of solving half the problem. You need new people to come in. So how can I get these business cards out? This is me thinking as a 16-year-old. So I would charge businesses $25 to distribute their business cards in my penny saver that I created. Always trying to problem solve, always trying to find a way to help people level up. So fast forward to the future, I'm in the mortgage business, and I love the creative financing side where I'm helping people, pull out money against their property, all these different things. And a guy, he called me asking me for all these millions, and I was a broker, so I didn't have a lender that could give him that much. And mind you, at this time, I'm probably like 20 years old or so. I already owned my home. I'd already been ahead of the game for most of the people my age. So I'm already thinking forward. I just wanted to give you a little background about how I think, So when he came to me asking for this money and I couldn't find somebody to fund him, I'm like, well, why can't you just take like $750,000 or, I could get that for you pretty easy. Your credit's good. You have the equity. What's up? What are you doing? And he said he's doing private placement platforms. And I'm like, what is that? So he started explaining it to me, and I'm like, that sounds crazy. So, and one thing, when I learned, when you ask questions, people love talking, people love explaining. And I kept saying, well, what does that mean? We're on the phone now for hours, and I'm intrigued by, how did I never hear of this? Why did we never hear about this in school or anything? Like, what the heck is private placement trades? And he said, you'll never hear about it unless you hear from somebody who's trading.
Wow.
It's a very private world, but it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And I'm like, wow. He said billions are traded daily. Billions are traded daily.
Wow.
So, So I said, okay, let me try to see if I can get in where I fit in. So I said, you mean to tell me you need to have a certain amount in the bank, but you don't have to spend it? He was like, that's correct. I'm only going to spend this amount, but I need to show this amount.
Yeah.
And I'm about 3 or 4 million short. So I'm like, okay, let me get back to you. And that's how Apogee Financial was built. So I started doing some research and seeing that there were other people who needed what he needed. Like, is there a real industry for this? And there was. And at that time, that's when like the blogs are really big. So I would go on the financial blogs.
What years are we talking about?
This is in 2000 and I want to say 7.
Okay, that time period. Okay.
2007, 2006, somewhere around there. And they were out there looking, hey, I need 100 million proof of funds. Hey, I need 250 million. And I was like, whoa, where are they getting this from? So I started doing the research of where they were getting it from. And it was mostly from European banks. So I was like, but a lot of them were American, So I was like, they got to go to Europe to get this. What if they could get it here? Let me make some phone calls. So I was like, who has 250 million? Who has 500 million? Hedge funds, right? So I decided that I was going to look up, the phone numbers for some hedge fund managers and just call them straight up and pitch.
Dope.
And that's exactly what I did. I pitched hey, how would you like to be able to lend money without risk? Most of the time I got hung up on, there's no such thing. But I finally got somebody who listened to me. Yes, you can lend the money, but there's no risk because they don't access the money. You lend it on paper. So you basically are going to add my client, do like an acquisition, or add my client to your accounts. You're going to do a block, right? Which is called an MT-760. You're going to do a block and they won't be able to access your funds. But on paper, it's going to look like they have those funds. And then they go in and do their own thing and they trade. You need to leave them on the account for 30 days and then you take them off. I finally got somebody who agreed to that.
Wow.
And that was my first deal.
Wow. That's incredible. But so the person that agreed, do you think he knew? Well, wait a minute. If they were adding people, so they would show that these people have the money. So there was some type of illegality with that, just because they don't really.
No, that was 100% legal. If you gave me your first, last name, your social, and date of birth, and a couple other things, and I went down to the bank and I wanted to add you as a signer, there's nothing illegal about that. Okay. Anybody can add anybody to their account. If you had 100 million, if I had 100 million and I added you to my account, now you on paper have 100 million as well.
Right. Even if I don't truly have access. Our private
agreement that you're not going to touch the money is private.
Okay.
But nobody else knows that, okay.
So what was the problem? Where did the illegality come in?
So that was legal, and that's where I first started making money.
How much would you charge?
It depends. So for if somebody needs to show 100 million, I might charge 100,000.
How did you come up with that? What'd you say in your mind? Like 1%, or what'd you say?
Yes, yeah, so I looked at what they were charging in the industry, like in Europe, to ping accounts, and I undercut everybody.
That's what it's called? Ping accounts?
Yeah, they would ping the account. So a ping is an electronic inquiry to see what the balance is. But we can't do that in United States banks. There's no way that I could get your account number and just ping your account and find out what your balance is. That's private. It's not my business. But, in other markets, they don't have those same rules. So you can ping accounts to see if somebody is financially worthy before you even start doing business with them.
Wow.
So that's why it was hard to get proof of funds in the United States, because they didn't have the ability to ping an account. Okay. So I was like, I'm going to create a system, where that can be done here, because look at all these people that need. So where it became illegal was when I had a client ask me for $500 million proof of funds. And I said, oh, I don't have anybody with that amount that would add you, And he said, well, you just did a deal for a friend of mine. Why can't you just change the number? I don't need the money. I just need to show the paperwork. I got my own money. I just need to get in the trade, and I'll pay you for it. I'll pay you a lot, a couple 100,000. So I was like, oh, no problem. Because in my mind, I'm like, I'm not stealing the money. Nobody's really going to use this money. It's just a look. It's just an entry ticket. That was my rationale. So I was able to change the numbers. And then I called the people that worked with me at the trade bank. And I said, listen, if anybody calls to verify this, just tell them you can't verify it over the phone, but they're ready, willing, and able to trade. That's all I need you to do. And I'll slide you 20 grand, whatever.
Wow.
So they like, all right. So now I got a team of bankers that will verify anything over the phone. And then I got the customers that need this stuff ASAP, same day, and they willing to pay all this money. I was like, what am I doing wrong? Just saying that they got money that they don't? It's not like we're stealing money out of an account.
Right.
That's how I was thinking. So that was the first deal.
Yeah.
And
I don't think you were doing anything wrong. Technically, I guess you were. I get it. Hey, from my personal point of view.
Well, I was falsifying documents because the document said that they had more than what they did. Right. But I still said that's a slap on the wrist, or, nothing crazy, because it's not even real documents. You know what I mean? It's not being used as a financial transaction. It's not like you go in the bank and cash it, So that was how I was thinking. And that opened up the door. Once I did that deal,
wow,
and I got like, what was it, 250,000 or something like that. Of course, he was back. He bring his friends back. All these people that had this money that wanted to be able to trade but couldn't qualify. I became the go-to girl.
Wow.
So now you're talking about $1 million a month sometimes more, just doing these types of deals.
Wow. How did they pay you the money though? Did they put it into your account, or you weren't getting paid in
But they
cash? Right?
they would wire it.
And that's where they was able to get you. That's where the bank fraud came in, right? Or is it?
I never got charged with bank fraud. I only got wire fraud.
Wire fraud. That's what I mean. That's where the wire fraud came
Mm-hmm.
in. So in theory, if they was able to pay you in cash, they probably would have came up with some type of other charge, money
They
laundering.
would have hit me with probably interstate commerce fraud. Like if you cross state lines with money, that's a crime. If you get it through a wire, that's a crime. If you get it through the mail, they would have said mail fraud because they mailed it to me. It's every single means of movement is sewed up in some type of federal something.
Yeah, if you discuss it on the phone, then they can hit you with using a communication device in the commission of a felony.
Right.
Yeah, all these nonsense crimes that they got. I get it. So, okay, that's where it came in. That's all right. So that's really intriguing. So, how much probation did they give you? Because you're still on probation. You got out in 2017. What did they give you?
I'm off probation now.
You are off probation. Okay.
I'm off. I just got off. Yeah, I've been off for almost a year.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Because that was something.
I already know. So I'm guessing they bar you from being involved in like anything financial.
No,
you're not barred.
Not at all.
That's awesome.
No. I do financial business every single day. No.
Okay, so what are you doing now? Tell us about that.
So right now, I'm doing some pretty dope stuff. I do a lot of credit repair.
Okay.
To me, credit repair is like a low-level version of kind of what I was doing. I help people increase their net worth on the credit side, because I always tell people, whether you got 100,000 in cash or whether you have 100,000 in credit, we have the same buying power. The person with credit is actually in a better position because they didn't have to spend their time, their energy, and earn that money. They signed on the dotted line and got that money in a couple of hours or a day or two, opposed to the person that might have had to work 3-4 years to save up that 100,000. They invest that money and something goes wrong. It was a complete waste of time, opposed to the person with the credit. It's not even their money that they lose. You know what I mean? Right. So I try to explain and teach people the power of credit, because the proof of funds business really, in a way, was credit, because they're being allowed to trade based on money that they don't have. It's kind of the same with credit. That's not your money. That's borrowed funds. But you're able to do everything that somebody that has earned the money can do, with just less risk. So I try to tell people, if you want to get wealthy, you cannot work your way to wealth. It's even hard to have a business and earn your way to wealth. You got to have borrowing power, and the more borrowing power you have, the bigger deals you can do. I tell people, look around at any skyscraper or large apartment complex or big commercial. Nobody's paying cash for that. That's all credit. And then they leverage the credit. So I try to teach people about that and how to do it the right way, so that they don't make certain mistakes and, do it, the wrong way, because we don't get taught about these things. These are things that you learn from your family or you inherit, down the line from people who've done it before you. And it can be scary to people because it looks like it's so difficult, but it's really not. It's all about, as long as you can show income, as long as you can show credit, you're good. And there's ways to make that happen. Even if you don't personally have, there's all types of things that you can do in creative financing. And the banks want to move money. They don't make any money if the money's not moving, because the only way to put new money in the economy is through interest. So if they're not making interest, then nothing's happening, So this is what I do. I teach people. I speak at places. I have speaking events all the time. I host events where I talk about, what happened to me. I do women's empowerment. I do financial empowerment events. That's one thing. So that's one of the biggest things that I do now.
That's a lot. That's awesome.
Thank you. And I also am about to launch my big franchise called Larry the London Lion. It's for children. So I have a children's book that teaches kids about credit. Yeah. It rhymes, and it teaches them about interest, borrowing, good credit, bad credit. And it, from 6 years old and up. And it's very easy to understand. So for example, the banker in the book says, you owe me interest. And the other character says, I don't understand why don't you just come back tomorrow? And he said, interest is when you pay me more than what I let you borrow. Like, so it all rhymes and it's easier to stick, you know, because of the way that I wrote it. And it's gotten really, really good reviews. So I took it a step further and I had the characters made life size, like Barney size, to do events. So, you know, the children
Wow.
get, yeah. So that's actually, I have our first big event for National Book Day. The character will be there. There'll be books there. There'll be financial games. And I plan to take that, you know, to a whole nother level. So I'm excited about that.
You should be excited. I'm excited just listening to you speak about it because it's apparent to me that you are the type of person that takes everything you do to a whole nother level. And, you know, I really love what you're saying because I didn't realize that. I saw the Larry the Lending line when I was reviewing the notes, but I didn't realize, like, the idea that you're teaching it to children, something that are not, you know, they're not taught. They're not taught to our children. At least they're not taught to our children. They're probably taught to some children. But, you know, that's amazing. You're really going to change lives for future generations.
Thank
So
you.
that's dope. I commend you. That's awesome. And so you're teaching financial literacy. You do empowerment programs. You're helping people with their credit. How would somebody, like, you know, how would people get with you? Are you like people that, like, okay, we're talking about children, but like if someone wants to get their credit fixed or whatever like that, like what's the deal?
Oh, they just go to my website. They just go. I get most of my business from my website.
From your website.
So therealcreditpro.com. I do a lot of Instagram lives, you know.
Credit Pro, therealcreditpro.com.
Therealcreditpro.com. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's dope. All right, y'all better be checking it out because I'm probably gonna be checking it out myself. You know, I'd love to, you know, offset. Yeah, I'll definitely be looking to circle back and try and see if I can add some value to you because I know you can add some value to me. That's dope. So when you,
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued with what you're doing. Obviously, you're a financial genius, and it's just something that you're gifted at doing, bringing things to the next level, and especially with the finances. And I would imagine, like, the reason why you're able to get these speaking events and everything is because, you know, whoever's hiring you for these speaking events, they realize that, you know, all right, you were breaking the law, you knew that. I get it. They say this is not right, but they obviously also know that you have a lot that you can offer about your ability to understand finances and how the money system works and how credit works. When you were in prison, because you did 9 years, 10 years?
Yeah, I had a 10.5 year sentence and I did 9 years and change. Mm-hmm.
What was that experience like? What were you doing while you were in there? Were you planning on when you got out? Like, did you have any type of mindset change to where you were like, all right, I was able to make all this money while you know, while I was breaking the law. Why don't I use the same knowledge, which obviously you're doing, but when did you decide you were going to do that when you got out, where you was like, yo, I was going to make this money, but I'm not going to break no laws this time?
So when I was away, you know, I was like, what am I going to do? I had to talk with myself, like, you know, my reputation in the street was, you know, Aisha, you know, that's boss lady. You know, everybody knows me as the boss lady because I always make things happen. And I'm like, you know, at the end of the day, it's very, very important that I don't succumb to this circumstance and lose who I am. So, you know, I need something to motivate me, something. And it fell in my lap. All the women were reading Thugs and the Women Who Loved Them by Wahida Clark. Everybody was reading the books. They were passing them around. Everybody sitting on their bunk glued to these books. And I'm like, what are they doing? So I was like, let me see that book. Because there's got to be some type of trance thing going on because y'all are so into this book. So I read it. And the thing that impressed me the most was when I got to the back of the book and I saw about the author that she had, you know, done 10 years in prison. And she became a New York Times bestselling author while she was in prison. And I was like, that's it. That's what I'm going to do.
What was her name?
You know, Wahida Clark.
Okay.
I said, I am definitely about to take on this challenge of writing because, you know, I always knew that I had, you know, creative skills. I have been doing music, you know, most of my life. So I was like, okay, let me try this. And I, you know, would write a chapter and I bring a couple of girls, be sitting on our bunks and I'm like, what y'all think of this? And I would read it to them and they like, give me more. So I was like, all right. Next thing you know, I wrote a whole book. Then it was a part 2. Then it was a part 3. Then it was another book. Then it was another book. So make a long story short, I end up writing, you know, 14 books throughout my bid. and publishing them. And
Wow.
that's how I was making money in prison initially. I was getting checks from my publishing
Dope.
um, while I was away. So I wrote all of those books. Plus, I was ghostwriting, for other women as well. There's a lot of women in prison who have some crazy stories that needed to be told.
I can imagine.
So they would hire me to write.
Wow.
So I spent the majority of my time writing books, and that's how I took care of myself, essentially.
That's amazing. And it must have been not only an incredible learning experience for you as you got better and better with each book that you penned, but also, I'm just imagining and guessing, not trying to put words into your mouth, but it sounds like it was probably also an escape also.
100%. 100%. They knew where to find me. Everybody be like, where's Hall? Oh, she in her office. That was the law library where they had the computers where I could type, with the typewriters or with the email system. I was there the whole time. And when I wasn't doing that, I found out that you could actually get the prison to approve you to do plays. Wow. So I started writing plays. And when you locked up with women, it's a different experience. These are mothers. It's a different type of depression when they separate from their children, right. So I'm like, I noticed when the holidays came around, it was very difficult, a lot of sad energy. So I was like, okay, we're going to do these plays and keep everybody's mind occupied on something else. So, when I'm telling you big production, I'm talking about, so back in the 60s and the 70s, a lot of mob wives were in the prisons, and they used to let you wear your clothes. So they would come in there with furs and all kind of stuff. Come to find out, in the basement of the recreation center, all of these clothes were still there.
Wow.
All of these clothes, thousands of pieces of clothes. So we got permission to get the clothes, cut them up, and make new clothes. That was our, costumes for the plays. So I would write these plays. And when I'm telling you, there was about 1,100 women at Alderson, and we would split it into 2 shows, 500 women each show. And the lines was around the corner. I'm talking about staff was trying to bring their kids there. The warden came to me and was like, listen, I'm not even supposed to hug you, but this was such an amazing production. This is the best thing we got going on in West Virginia right now. The play was a movement through time. So I started off, with Queen Nefertiti. It was coming, with the whole kind of like, if you imagine coming to America, like a whole big entrance all the way to these slave catches, all the way to, the Rolling 20s, all the way up until showing that prison was the new version of that. And I put it into this crazy play that, was ringing bells all throughout the prison system. And I never wrote a play before, just like I'd never written a book. But I say all that to say that prison showed me talents that I never knew that I had, So when I look back on the journey, a lot of people be like, oh, how did you survive that? And I'm like, if I had to do it any other way, I wouldn't have changed it, because it gave me purpose. It gave me talents that I didn't know I have. I helped so many women, get out of prison. I was a jailhouse lawyer. I did everything over the course of that time, and it really made me who I am and gave me a whole new outlook on life. So it was an interesting experience. It was life changing, and not in a bad way.
That's dope. That's super dope. And trust me, I can relate to a lot of what you're saying. I had a similar experience. I wasn't writing books, but I was writing briefs, because I went to trial. I lost. They gave me 151 months. And I was able to write my own briefs. And I ended up getting out on a 2255. After I lost the trial, lost on direct appeal, Supreme Court turned me down, spent a lot of money on lawyers. I got to write my own briefs. I educated myself in there. And I got out in Charleston, West Virginia, which is the most conservative circuit in the United States of America, as you probably know.
Dope work.
Yeah, so it's in the law book. So, I appreciate what you're saying. And like I tell people, I'm never going to say that prison was good, but I made a decision that I was going to come out. Well, you got to make a decision. Either you're going to be bitter or better. When you came out, I decided I was going to be better. And it sounds like, it's obvious through your works that you came out absolutely better. Like you said, you wouldn't do it any other way. Not because it was a good thing to go to prison, but because you was able to take a positive from the negative situation that you were in, and you were probably able to grow in ways that you never would have dreamed of. I know that we only got about 7 more minutes. I want to ask you quickly, before I move to a little segment called In and Out Segments, where we do some word association. But I also have 4 children, Aisha. I got 2 boys and 2 girls, and I've got I've got an unbelievable relationship with all of my children. My baby is 17. My baby girl is 17. My oldest daughter is 23. I had an extremely close relationship with I have an extremely close relationship, and it got really close when I came home from prison because I'm very intentional about spending time with my children, and we do a lot of great things. I know that you mentioned your father. What type of relationship did you have with your father growing up? And I also know that something very horrible happened when you were in prison. I read that you lost your father while you were in prison. Can you speak on that for briefly?
Yeah, absolutely. My father was everything to me. My father was a musician. He worked with Public Enemy.
Wow.
That's how I got into music. I've been doing music since I can remember. And I learned that from my dad. My father was a gangster. And he was the type of gangster that I like, meaning he was not scared of the so-called authority, so to speak. I look at dudes today and I'm like, y'all do all of this stuff to your own brothers, but when it comes to the police or it comes to any of these so-called figures of authority, you fold so fast. But my father was like, he didn't care as far as like, I'm on this type of time. And he was a very righteous thinker, I would say like militant to an extent, and he wasn't scared of them. And I think that impacted me the most because when I got into doing the trading and all of that, I was not scared. I got that fearlessness from my pops 1,000%, So my father had a huge impact on me. He sold drugs, but he got so much respect. It was crazy. Like dudes damn near like bowed down to him. And I was just like, damn, like, because it gives you leverage when people have that much respect for you. So I was like, I gotta live my life in a way where I get the utmost respect. And it carried over into how I carry myself. The majority of my communication is with men. And I've never had a problem where I'm disrespected or anything because I carry myself a certain way. And I learned that all from my father. He was extremely instrumental into building my mind. I grew up like going to church with my grandmother, but my father also was into Hebrew Israelite. So I went to the Israelite temple growing up. Then he was a Moor, so I was into that. And then he was just this being, you know what I mean? That just gave me all of this knowledge and understanding. So he just put me in a different category. And he was rough around the edges,
right?
So even though he passed away when I was in prison, he got deported back to Jamaica. He came here when he was like 5 years old, so he really was like American, but he was born in Jamaica, but he came here very, very young. So when they deported him, it was like he wasn't used to living in, a third world country. He's from here,
Right.
So he ended up getting into a fight with a guy and they got into like a knife fight and my father ended up dying from his stab wounds. But as crazy as it sounds, there's no other way for him to have gone out. Like my father was just like a warrior, and he definitely impacted my life more than anybody else that I've ever dealt with at any time. Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. That's awesome. That's dope.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that with us. That's deep.
What time is it?
It's time for us to it's 11:52. So I'm gonna close it
All
up.
right, we can go like maybe like 10 minutes over if you need to.
Okay. All right, that's awesome. I appreciate that. Did they allow you to, so the funeral was in Jamaica, did they allow you to come home or anything when your father
No, I
died?
couldn't go. Because he was killed and he didn't die of natural causes.
That's
They
right.
didn't
won't
let me go.
Right.
Mhm.
And that's another thing, Aisha, that a lot of people just don't understand. So I appreciate you sharing it also. Like, just some of the things that they come up with when we're in there. If you lose a loved one, just like you said, he didn't die of natural causes, but he was still your father. He had a profound impact on your life, and they wouldn't allow you to come out. So it's another thing people don't think about. That we're not even able to mourn correctly when something like that happens. But I appreciate you sharing that, and that just gives me a little insight to who you are. Because to me, I respect all human beings, but I can readily see that you command respect. And so now I know, I mean, no matter who you're dealing with, man, woman, or children, just the way you carry yourself, you exude confidence. And that's a beautiful thing. I mean that genuinely. And now you share with us that you got it from your father. That's dope. And you're someone that I'll tell my children about, particularly my daughters, India and Alexandra, because as Black women, they love to see people that they can, they love to see strong Black women. I'll put it that way. And I know you're.
And it comes from people like you. When the first thing you said when you spoke about your daughters is your relationship, and a father-daughter relationship is so important, so important. It's what shapes how a woman moves through life. The kind of husband she looks for, or boyfriend, or whatever. My man now reminds me a lot of my father. You know what I'm saying? And I know there were certain characteristics that had to be there, in order for me to even feel like this is a real man. Because I don't know what happened in that time that I was gone till now. I don't know what type of Kool-Aid. I don't know what happened, but the energy of men is very different now than it was then. So I feel very fortunate to have been able to find what I found. Because these dudes is I don't know. It's like I don't know if you want to ask me about music or if you want me to just tell you.
Now tell me.
So it's crazy because I am signed. I'm a signed artist. Dope. I'm signed to Ghostface Killah.
Okay.
And
that's awesome.
It's dope because it was like, in conversations with him, it's like looking for a female artist that embodies real hip hop, that really has the credentials to speak on certain things. He was like, you perfect. And I'm like, this is somebody who I idolize as an artist younger that actually, has a tremendous amount of respect for me and my journey. So it's just like being real does pay off. You don't have to be all of this other BS because there's a real audience for official dope shit. There's a real audience for that. You don't have to be convoluted. You don't have to be fake. You don't have to be none of that, because I came home and I'm like, okay, now hold on a minute. I know the life I lived having all these millions, and I know how difficult it was to acquire that. And I definitely looked the part to an extent because I'm not very materialistic, but I definitely, when I walked in a room, you knew there was something going on. So now when I walk in these rooms, when I came home, I'm like, wow, shit, everybody done leveled up.
Right.
Everybody leveled up. This is a great. And then I found out it was all fake. And I was like, wait, I was very confused. I was very lost. I was like, what is going on? So it took me a minute to kind of adjust to the way the world was because everybody looked like they was rich. And I'm like,
and none of them were rich.
None of them were rich. So I started, I went through something mentally. I started feeling like, what am I doing wrong? You know what I'm saying? Then I realized that even coming home, I was doing better than the majority of people, but they just spent their money on looking a certain way where I was just constantly looking for things to invest in. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, I had to say, oh, I get it. It's everything is a front.
Right.
And once I got that understanding, I was able to move a little better, but people don't really respect the journey as much as they respect the look. People don't really respect the position unless you really showing it, and showing it, could be fake.
Right.
So it became a lot of confusion, and it's still a lot of confusion. So I think that's why I've been able to stand out because, everything is real. Everything is official.
Real.
Everything is real. And I think that that's what's missing. So it's helped me and hurt me in ways, it's done good for me. But because I stick to the way that I move, I'm not going to, I love doing music, but there's certain things I just will not do to compromise myself. And if that costs me my success in that area, it is what it is. But it's just certain things I'm not willing to do. Like, I'm just not doing it, And people be like, oh, you got to I'm like, no, not happening.
Yo, you are super dope. The longer this conversation goes, the more dope I realize you are, and I appreciate that. But I gotta listen. I'm mindful of and respectful of your time, and I'm appreciative of the time that you gave us and that you let us go over. So I'm gonna wrap this up. Really, we moving towards wrapping it up now. But I gotta say something. I gotta comment on some of the things you said. Number one, I agree with you 100%. And I'm happy you said it coming from a woman such as yourself, a strong woman that daughters, and this is why it's so important for fathers to be involved in their daughters' lives and for them to be an example for their daughters, because a woman is gonna choose a man or be with a man, and they learn from their fathers what to accept and what to demand out of a man. And so I love that what you said, that you were blessed to be able to find somebody like that in your life, and that allows you to be who you are, and still has respect for you, and still shows you the love that you need in order to be in a committed a relationship and to have a companion. And I like what you said about Ghostface and the reason why, and how you signed to them. And I noticed that what you said, like there's a space out there for people to recognize realness. And without being boastful or arrogant, I believe and I feel that this podcast is a space for that. And that's why I'm so happy that you decided to come on and share these stories with us, because you're a real one. And we try and keep only real ones on this podcast. And I'm not saying that we the best, but we far from the worst. And I can say this with complete confidence that we one of the realest podcasts out there in the world. So for y'all tuning in, if you ain't real, then you might not enjoy what we giving and what we dishing out. But the people that come here have been vetted, and they 100% real, and that's why we were blessed by having a sister like Aisha Hall. And I'm gonna get off my soapbox, but I want to finish it off.
No, you gotta let them know. You gotta let them know.
No, real recognize real. And I appreciate
100%.
you for recognizing it, and I could see it, and I could feel it 100%. And we're gonna keep having, striving to have people on like yourself. That's about their life and stand on business, as they say. So that's dope. Another thing that you talked about is, there's a lot of fictitious stuff out there. I'm just gonna say it. Like, people is fabricating and they putting up this front, but once you spend a little bit of time with someone, you could see through it. You just allow someone to keep talking. People is putting stuff out there that they don't really have and they don't really own. But I'm gonna end it with something that we call in and out segment. And I just want to throw maybe 5 or 6 words at you, and just what comes to mind, what you feel. Just tell me what it says. What you feel when I say this.
Okay.
Good deal. All right. Love.
I feel, wow, I never really thought about that. When you just say love, what do you feel? I just feel.
What do you think of when you think of that word, love?
And I think of creating.
Right.
Because love is like the motivating factor for me. I want to do better for love, It's like a thing that makes me want to impress myself. If that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. Freedom. And I only got 5 of these words, or 6.
Freedom. I think of movement and the ability to just live better.
It's dope. Forgiveness.
Not enough of it.
What's your passion?
Helping people level up.
When I say in and out, what does that word mean to you? And that's the last one.
Getting it done.
No doubt. Aisha
Getting
Hall.
it done.
Yo, you're spectacular. You're beautiful. Inside and out. You're real. I appreciate you. We appreciate you. If you could just take however long it takes you, say something to someone out there that might be struggling, might have been struggling, might end up struggling in the future. Give them some words of encouragement and tell people where to find you.
All right. Definitely, if you're struggling, you're on the right path, because that means you're doing something. Don't give up. As cliche as it sounds, nothing stays the same. It's always going to be light and then dark and then light and then dark. That's just the way the world works. So don't give up. Stay on the path, and something will work in your benefit. Just take advantage of it when it happens and when it's in your favor. Just don't give up. That's really what it comes down to. So, and take your time. Take your time. You don't have to rush everything. Take your time. Your time will come. That's really how I live my life, and that's what's worked for me. So that's my advice. And what else did you say?
Where can people find you? Social media.
People can find me at the real Aisha Hall on Instagram, and people can find me on Facebook at Aisha Hall. And they could just Google me, or they can Google me, or they can just go on YouTube and find me. I'm there. I'm very easy to find. If they're interested in, getting the credit work, just go to therealcreditpro.com.
All right. We're going to bring you on out. You already heard it. You heard it here first from the real Aisha Hall. This is a real true sister, a sister soldier. She is a female gangster, but gangster in a good way. She stands on her business and she don't stand for no foolishness. She got it from her father. I am honored, and it was a privilege for us to have her. We appreciate her for tuning in. You got to check on her. She's an author. She's a financial leader. She's a financial teacher. She's inspiring so many people. She's teaching so many people. She is empowering so many people so that they can be financially free. They can free themselves from the slave of finances by tuning in and listening to what she has to say. And most importantly, last but not least, she is coming out with a book. She is the author of Larry the Lending Lion, because she is helping the next generation of children. You've got to check her out. Real recognize real. And that is why she is on In and Out. We appreciate y'all for tuning in. You know where to find us at INNOUT. That's In and Out. Hosted by Eric Gerald on all social media platforms. We appreciate you for tuning in. And now we out. Peace.